All right, we'll call this meeting back to order. The board has met in closed session. There's no reportable action. We also want the records to show that UC Davis has joined us and is participating. So let's go. We now have item 2, the consent agenda in front of us. Any member of the board wish to withdraw any item from consent? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve consent.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any comment from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item 3 is the project update. Dennis?
Yes, Chair Marble and board members have a brief update on the project for you this afternoon. Start with financing and our SRF loans. First in the city of Woodland. We have 2 SRF loan agreements in place, one of $111 million for the regional facilities, and then the city of Woodland has a second SRF loan for local distribution system improvements. We did receive $18 million for the regional loan in December. That covered expenditures all the way back to September of 2009. And we currently have $6.3 million in reimbursement claims in process that have been submitted. In Davis, we got a $95.5 million SRF loan, clean water SRF loan approved in December. The City of Davis, and along with UC Davis, have additional applications pending for improvements to the distribution system. We did submit our first claim for reimbursement of $10.1 million. We understand that the check is in the mail. And literally, that's how these are delivered. The state apparently does not do electronic transfers. So when Woodland's $18 million check came, it was a regular sized check for $18 million. So Paul said he was a little nervous taking that, Paul Navazio, a little nervous delivering that to the bank. Similar to the Woodland loan, the $10 million covers expenditures from 2009, and we're expecting payment any day now. With respect to grants on the joint intake, as we've reported before, we're seeking a total of $40.2 million evenly split, $21.1 million from each of the state and the federal government. We've got $17.4 million committed on the federal side. A request to increase that to $2.7 is pending. And on the state, we're up to $12 million with the $2 million grant that was achieved or awarded from the Wildlife Conservation Board in November. As explained in more detail in the financing update memo in your packet, our best opportunity at this point is Proposition 1 funds to secure the remaining $8.1 million in grant funds from the state. We are working with our consultant, California Strategies, on a strategy that is very similar to the one that we employed and were successful in securing the $10 million in FY14. So we're relatively confident, given the influx of Proposition 1 monies, that we'll be able to secure that final $8 million.
We have one question.
Are we confident in that 8.1 out of the Prop 1?
Yes. There's $1.5 billion worth of money in Proposition 1 that has been designated for restoration projects, habitat conservation projects that we feel very confident we qualify for, and are building our strategy around that.
Thank you.
Yes.
So before we move on to the, or actually, since we're at the next slide, but related to the previous slide, it just seems kind of fun to have one of those checks made into a giant check, Ed McMahon style, and have like a picture of Bill shaking hands with State Senator Wolk or whoever, and or depend on the source of the money, Congressman Garamendi or something.
For all of us.
Yeah, but
That's a great idea.
yeah, I don't know. It just seems like kind of a fun photo op. Inject a little
I think it would be
excitement.
It'd be good I know the staff is very excited about it. I think it might be a really nice gesture to have a picture with Senator Woke or John Garamendi, or for folks that really helped us get the money.
Yeah. Good thought. Yeah.
Environmental and permitting. We're working on the notice of preparation for the supplemental ASR EIR that's being prepared. We're working with Fish and Wildlife and Department of Fish and Wildlife, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, on wintertime construction limitations associated with a giant garter snake. This is really an effort that our contractor CH2M Hill is undertaking. They want to be able to work longer hours and different hours than originally provided for in the permit, so they're in the process of identifying additional measures that they will take to protect the giant garter snake in order to allow that flexibility. We are completing a review of County Road 22. So we identified, this is fairly close to the intake, a structural section of Road 22 where we were going to put our raw water pipeline. That from a structural standpoint would have made it very difficult and to safely and reliably install the raw water pipeline in the roadway alignment. So we've identified an area to the south that is owned by a property owner by the name of Ramos, and he's very willing to adjust his easement to accommodate a realignment, and we've completed an environmental review, so we will be proceeding with that realignment. We did obtain the Yolo County encroachment permit. That was a very important milestone, and just to remind the board, it calls for the complete closure of Road 22 between May 15th and June 15th of this year. So we're working very closely with the Farm Bureau to make sure that the farmers have alternate access during the time that that road is closed. Purpose of the road closure, again, is to allow for installation of the raw water pipeline and to tunnel under the levees. We did get our Caltrans permit to install the pipeline under I-5, and we continue to coordinate with the California Department of Public Health. Actually, it's now called the Division of Drinking Water, on the ultimately the permit that they will issue when the project is completed and ready to go into construction, allowing us to operate the plant and deliver water to the customers. Utility coordination, we've confirmed that we will get WAPA power at the intake, and PG&E is in the process of upgrading the electrical service at the joint intake. We have nearly completed our savings by design report with PG&E, and we're going to be getting between $82,000 and $122,000 in rebate credits for the use and installation of energy efficient equipment on the project. We did obtain the Harlan easement along the Davis treated water pipeline, and we have just one easement remaining. That's the Lillard easement. In terms of the joint intake project, construction is underway. The coffer dam is complete. The structural piles are actually complete now, and starting tomorrow morning at 2 a.m., they're going to pour what's called a tremie slab. That's an 8-foot thick concrete slab poured underwater that basically seals off the coffer dam. Once that tremie slab is poured, they'll be out of the river and able to start the superstructure on top of it. So it's an exciting milestone. 24-hour straight pour starting at 2 o'clock this morning. And they're installing the pipelines under the railroad for our the Woodland Davis raw water lines. It's a picture of the production piles. This was taken a week or 10 days ago, so this area here has been filled in with the remaining piles, and then within the confines of the coffer dam is where this tremie slab will be poured. This is just a picture of the jacking pit where the Woodland Davis raw water pipeline is being installed under the railroad. In terms of construction on the regional water supply project, we've completed 100% design. We continue to process construction submittals and requests for information as the project goes along day by day. And through the end of September, we're about 22% complete, and we've paid out $28.5 million on the $144 million contract price. This is some fairly recent photos. This is the clear well number 1. The dome has been poured. This is actually a couple weeks old. This is clear well number 2. They've completed all of the walls, and if you drive by on the freeway, you'll see that they're putting up the scaffolding and the plywood for the pouring of the second dome. There's a picture of the backwash equalization basin, west wall. You can see some of the underground piping that's being installed that will eventually be backfilled and covered over. This is an implant pump station forming for the walls. Filter gallery, they've got the slab complete, and they're starting the formwork for the walls of the filter gallery. And this is what's the sand ballasted clarifier, or the primary clarifier for the project, and the walls are starting to go up here. So you're starting to see the work coming up out of the ground. All of the large pipelines and excavations have been complete, and we're starting to see walls appear on all of the various structures. Chemical storage facility, they're getting ready to pour the slab for that building. Got delayed a little bit by the rain, but they're recovering that, and they're putting in the rebar and the conduit before they pour the slab. So upcoming activities and milestones, we'll continue obviously to process the reimbursement claims from SRF. We are having a site inspection of the SRF team on January 21st, and so we are getting prepared for that. They want to come out and see progress. They also want to see all of our records and our documentation, so they'll be going through our files at the same time. We'll continue to keep our eye on the upgrade of the electrical service for the joint intake, and continue to coordinate with the Yolo County Farm Bureau as we get closer to that road closure on Road 22. Permitting, we'll continue the efforts on the ASR supplemental EIR, the permit to operate, as I mentioned earlier, and we have ongoing obligations in our permits to continue monitoring for sensitive species and habitat during construction, and that will continue. Property rights, as mentioned, we're down to the Lillard property, and so we're hopefully going to be getting that resolved here shortly. Milestones shown here. Some of the interim dates that I mentioned during the presentation. I guess the bottom line is that the acceptance test is still scheduled for June of 2016. So we're going to begin commissioning this November, putting some of the unit processes through their paces, then having that substantially complete in March, going through the full acceptance test and having that complete in June. At the same time that's happening on the regional water treatment plant, the two cities, Woodland and Davis, are making the necessary improvements to their distribution system, so when the water is ready to be delivered, they'll have the pipes to take it. And finally, this is the project cost. This is the same slide that you've seen for the last couple of board meetings. Total regional project costs remain $204.5 million, and when you add in the local improvements being made by the two cities, the total project cost is $270.7 million. Be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Questions? Go ahead. Okay.
So I wasn't at the last meeting, and I just wanted to thank you and your team for helping Davis secure the SRF funding. That was a very important thing, and yeah, we're very, very thankful for the efforts that you and your staff had made to help that occur.
Well, thank you, and just say it was a team effort. There was a lot of people from the cities and the agency working pretty hard to make sure that happened, and we're really happy it did.
Any other questions?
Like one other.
Yeah.
So Davis, because of its deep water aquifer, is not currently planned to have the ASR system like Woodland is planned. Has there been any sort of just general cost estimates done to add that capability for Davis in the future? So I understand.
Yeah.
Actually.
I think in general, yes, there has been some analysis, but you're correct in that I think Woodland's groundwater situation perhaps a little more severe, a little more immediate in terms of developing the ASR. The way the environmental documents are being prepared is that the overall document will provide a programmatic EIR.
Okay.
for both Woodland and Davis. But because Woodland is planning to move ahead more quickly, the environmental document will provide project-specific environmental documentation as well. If Davis in the future decides that they want to pursue ASR, they can tier off of the programmatic EIR and supplement that with specific information on the specific projects they implement.
Okay, thank you.
Good, thank you very much. Item 4, are you handling that, Dennis, or is Richard?
I was going to just handle it. This is just a request to authorize us, the agency, to
Are you on?
This is a recommendation to authorize the agency participating in MOU for a sanitary survey in the Sacramento watershed. As explained in the staff report, there are a number of other agencies that are participating, making our cost at $26,000 relatively modest. We feel that it provides, not only does it allow us to comply with regulatory requirements for surveying the watershed, it also provides us with useful information on the quality of the water that's coming into the treatment plant, to the intake, and then the treatment plant. Then it provides us a good baseline in terms of water quality over the years, and we can monitor how the water quality is changing, if at all.
Any questions? I don't see any, so we'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve item number 4.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further comment? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. We'll move to item 6.
Item 5, Mr.
Item
Chairman.
5, I apologize. I know
yes,
I'm trying to move us along, but I wasn't trying to skip something. I'm sorry.
Mr. England might have some issues.
Yeah,
with that.
I should be turning this one over to Sid to present. I'm sure we'll let him be the first to speak on it.
Dennis asked me to handle this item, but as the board knows, back in 2010, the agency and the University of California entered into a nature of an option agreement giving the university up until the time of project completion to opt in and join the project. Upon executing the option, the parties agreed that they would sign a particular water service, water supply contract, and that contract has already been amended twice in the past to reflect other changes in the project as we refine the project capacity and other changes. Most recently, in large part because of the recent success with the SRF funding for the Davis share of the project facilities, the agency was also able to include in that funding the UC Davis share of the regional project costs. The current water supply contract provided the university with various options of how they're going to finance the capital cost of the project, and it gave them some choices and whatnot. Now with the SRF funding, the university's looked at that and concluded that any financing it could come up with couldn't beat the SRF terms, so the university is happy to participate on the capital financing through the SRF funding. The proposed contract amendment that's before you would implement that provision, reflect the SRF funding, set forth the university's share of that funding obligation, and also make other changes to the contract to reflect changes in over time, especially now that we're under construction and certain contract off-ramps are no longer relevant. Those provisions have been taken out of the proposed contract. So agency staff has worked up this proposed amendment. It's been reviewed by Mr. England and his staff and attorneys, and at his level, he's agreeable with it. The agreement also would require approval by the region, not the regions? No. And Sid will address approval at his end in a minute, but it's been approved at Sid's level, and with that, agency staff recommends approval. And see if you have any questions. It might be a good time for you, Sid, to chime in on anything I missed.
That'd be great. Thank you, Dick. Yeah, this was one of the easiest revisions to a legal document I've ever done. Dick sent us a draft. We accepted every change and said, thank you. We had nothing else that we needed to add. So I want to also add to Brett's remarks and thank you guys for all the work you did with the SRF loans, because my experience in the time I've been at the university is usually the university can get better interest rates than anybody else. That's definitely not the case here. So we're the beneficiaries of that. Not only that, but also your plowing the road here has made it ease the way for us to appear that we'll be able to get an SRF loan for our own facilities that we're doing ourselves. So we kind of get a double or triple benefit out of this process. The regents do not need to approve this. This is considered to be, in our way of doing business, a utility contract. No different than if we had one with electrical provider that included, fees in that contract for facilities. So it's actually the signature block should be for our business contract manager on campus. So it's an on-campus approval. So so everybody, including the business contract manager, our legal counsel, everybody has reviewed it, and we'll be ready to sign it. Want to put it into context about when we actually are going to sign these documents. We're working right now with the City of Davis. We've been with Diane and Bob and Harriet Steiner, City Council, and others. We have 3 documents. We've put together a master agreement, an encroachment permit for a university-owned pipeline through the city, and a construction work letter for construction of things within the city itself. Those, I believe, or hope, are going to City Council on Tuesday. We actually used, Dick, some of your language to reflect and borrowed from that in those documents as well. Once those are done, approved by the city, then the thing we do have to go to the regents for is there is indemnification language that's being required by the Union Pacific Railroad for an undercrossing, and being reflected in the city's agreement as well. And the regents have not delegated that authority to deviate from standard indemnification language that the university has. So we will be going to the regents for that. That's the one item that we have to go to the regents. That will go to the March meeting of the regents, which is scheduled to be on March 18th. Assuming all goes well, and the other thing is in about a week, we'll be going to the chancellor to have her actually approve the design and the budget for the part of the project that will be serve the university only. And we'll file our CEQA notices for that. Once the regents approve the indemnification language, then all the documents will be ready, and I would assume sometime at the very end of March, we would be signing everything in time for the bid documents to go out around the April 1-ish, plus or minus a few days. I don't know what the exact date is.
The actual time that the bid will go out will be the very end of February, but the opening is not until later when you're discussing,
Right.
the time frame you're discussing.
We will be catching up with that process. So that's sort of the way we're laying it out to go forward. These last few weeks, it's since the middle of November, it's really been great because the city and the university have both, it was one of the easiest sort of figuring out how to divvy up liability and indemnity and insurance and management and all of that. It was just crafting the words to get it down on paper. So I think we're ready to go.
Very exciting. Any other comments, questions? Well, normally I'd say, Sid, you should make this motion, but I'm sorry your hands are tied on this one.
Very good.
Actually, I did have a quick question. I apologize.
Yeah.
It was my recollection with Conway, should we purchase additional water from Conway, that the proportion of the cost would be based upon the proportion of water that we took from that supplemental purchase. Is that correct? Because right now there are sort of allocations based upon percentage of overall capacity, percent of the Davis portion, the global Davis portion of the cost is allocated based upon UC Davis's potential use and the City of Davis' potential use. When there's a supplemental water purchase, is the cost allocated based upon the amount used by each entity? Do you recollect? That was my recollection. And
Yeah, and my recollection as well, and Dick can correct me, but the supplemental water, the 10,000
Yes.
acre feet, UC receives 1.8 over 30 of that percentage of the water, and they pay 1.8% over 1.8 over 30 for that amount. They get. I don't know
so
the-
right,
I
that's
think
based
it's
upon the
6%.
gross capacity of the plant. But there were some provisions for should the Woodland Davis Clean Water Agency wish to purchase additional water from the Conway Preservation Group. There was sort of a pre-planned percent allocation of that cost for the additional water.
Here's
Right,
And-
yeah.
And
It's 3.5%.
Yeah, unless the parties agreed otherwise, it would be, the university's share would be 3.5% of the additional supplemental purchase, assuming the university agreed to participate. However, that's also subject to negotiation. If the parties decide to buy additional water, the percentages could be changed.
And we, as the board, could allocate the cost based upon the amount that each of the three entities use. Right, because the way it's
You could, except for the university, because the university's rights are all by contract. And so the board, the four agency boards couldn't dictate a change that's contrary to the university's contract. And the university's contract really doesn't address this issue of buying additional supplemental water. That would require a separate contract with the university.
Okay, so I'm not trying to slow down the train here. I
Right.
guess just for to help me better understand. So if we were, as an entity, to pursue the additional purchase of CPG water, there has been sort of these set percentages showing how we would allocate that cost, but potentially each entity would want a different allocation of the water than the pre-allocated proportion of cost.
Correct.
Does that make sense?
Yes,
So,
and
you know,
that's all
Davis-
negotiable.
would
That
be
change could be made.
So that would be negotiable between Davis and Woodland, but as UC Davis has this set percentage, then that would be
negotiate.
set.
Then it would essentially be a three-way discussion among the two cities and the university. First issue would be whether or not the university had any interest in an additional water capacity. And then if they did, part two would be, well, you want the 3.5% share or some other share?
So if I understand right, Dick, if we go beyond any additional purchases, it's an open negotiation, there's no prior commitments, is that correct?
Correct.
That's correct.
And so I misunderstood maybe earlier, Brett. You're talking about purchases beyond what's already
Yes,
been
over and above the stated capacity of the
Yeah. So-
allocation.
It could be 1, 2, or 3 participants could decide to participate in that and divvy it up according to whatever they saw.
Seems like.
Right, okay.
Yeah, thank you. I just thank
good
you for the
question.
clarification.
All right. We prepared to act on this item? I think so. I'll move item 6,
5.
A second.
pardon me, 5. I'm getting ahead.
Oh, wait,
Make a motion to approve item 5, which is the contract,
Brett, do you want a second?
the amended water supply contract, including the university.
I'll second that.
All right. Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion or comments from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Now-
Just a brief comment. It's also very exciting that the university has decided to join in with the project. I know in our community in Davis, the university is viewed very highly, and the fact that they've decided to join in, I think, has swayed many people who were initially opposed to the project and really convinced them that perhaps this has been, in fact, a good idea. So, yeah, thank you to UC Davis.
Well, thank you, and I reiterate, a few years ago, we thought we were going to have to opt out, and working with the two cities and the staff, found a way to reach this ability for us to delay the decision at a time when the fiscal picture was better. And so thank you guys for giving us the opportunity to wait till things got a little bit better.
All right. Now we'll go to item 6. The money.
So there's a very detailed report in your packet, but I'm just going to take a couple minutes and summarize it. The effort that the staff undertook to review the status of the budget, and yeah. I think you'll find that we've got some good news for the board this afternoon. The FY15 budget that was approved last June was for $96.5 million. So the staff took a look at all of the actual expenditures through November of last year, determined the expenditures that were incurred in December, and then we made projections for the remainder of the fiscal year. And based on that review, it looks like we're going to end the fiscal year approximately $8 million under budget, or under the current budget. So the primary reasons for the budget reductions are listed on this slide. A lot of this is just a shifting of costs from one fiscal year to the next. It's really not changing the overall project cost, but there's about a $14 million delay in construction of the design, build, operate facilities. And the main facilities that were delayed were the pipelines. Originally, CH2M Hill was going to start the construction of the pipelines last fall. When they took a more closer look at it, the permitting, the finalizing the contract with subcontract with Mountain Cascade, the procurement of materials, it became a better choice for them to start the construction this spring. There's plenty of time in the overall construction schedule to accommodate shifting from last fall to this spring for the start of the construction of the pipelines. And so that money that we would have otherwise been paying for the pipeline installation has been deferred. We did save $100,000 in submittal review. The reviews of their design submittals went very well and very efficiently. We did also have $100,000 for submittal reviews due to the delay in the review of those submittals associated with the pipelines I just talked about. Budget increases, we did spend $4.5 million more than originally anticipated for the joint intake. A lot of this is for accelerated construction that we thought would be take a little longer. Payment of some change orders associated with the installation of the cofferdam that we talked about at our last board meeting. And then some bridge funding for the delay in state grant funding. So I wanted to make sure the board understands this. As part of our diversion agreement with CPG and Reclamation District 2035, the agency is responsible for any shortfall in grant funding, state grant funding for the joint intake. We are still looking for that last $8 million. As I said earlier, we're very confident we're going to get it, in the next year's budget, and that money would be available in the September timeframe, this September. The state grant funds that have already been received are going to run out before then. So we're looking at probably a $2.5 million advance on that grant fund. It'll come back to us once the grants are actually received. We had $1.3 million worth of environmental mitigation credits. We had budgeted in FY14 in the previous fiscal year. We thought they would be paid last June. Turned out that they didn't get paid until this fiscal year. And then we had $150,000. We have $150,000 for material escalation payment. Again, we thought that was going to be made in FY17, but it turns out it's going to be made this year. So it's not an increase in cost. It's a shifting of the fiscal year in which the payments are being made. And then a couple of final items. We did have about $90,000 for our lobbyist activity. So about half of that was for services that we paid to California Strategies to assist us with the legislative fix, 5956, that enabled primarily Davis to proceed with their $95.5 million loan. The other half of that was for payments on the joint intake assistance that we're sharing with Reclamation District 2035. We have an agreement in place that says we'll share those costs 50-50. They forgot to invoice us in the previous 2 fiscal years, so the approximately half of this, the $41,000 or $42,000, is payments per that contract to share in the state, in the share of the state lobbyists for the grant funding pursuit. And then finally, we had an expenditure of $66,000. We commissioned a study for a more detailed plan as to how to introduce the surface water into the cities. We looked at it, and we said, well, we don't want to just turn on the plant and start delivering 30 million gallons a day to the 2 cities. We need to be more careful in terms of understanding the operation of the distribution system, how the different water chemistries are going to interact, how the flows in the pipelines might change. We want to make sure that we have a very smooth introduction of the surface water and a very positive experience for the customers. So this study is going to look at how we do that in a more stepwise fashion. So conclusions, the budget is sufficient to cover our expenditures. The consultant contracts are sufficient as well. We're going to work with the agency treasurer to determine the appropriate amount of a third quarter invoice. When we laid out the budget, we thought we were going to be invoicing $29 million between the 2 cities. It looks like with the influx of SRF funding that third quarter invoice is going to be less. It also looks like as the SRF funds have started to come in that we're not going to need to invoice the cities for the 4th quarter. So it's a long way of saying, we have one more invoice. The agency plans to, or will invoice the city one more time. And then after that, the SRF funds will be used to cover expenditures through the end of construction. So no changes are recommended to the overall project budget. Be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
I don't see any. So let's move to the long-range calendar. Thank you.
As you can see on the long-range calendar, the next 3 months, we don't show a lot of time-sensitive activities on the board's part. My suggestion would be that we do what we've done in the past. We keep the meeting schedule, but as we get closer to that board time, that we'll defer or cancel if there's nothing that the board needs to take action on or consider.
Yeah, any comments from members of the board? Just a couple things. As I previously indicated, because of the League Board of Directors, I cannot be here on the 19th of February, should that meeting happen. Also, on the 18th of June and the 16th of July, conflicted out on both those. So because of the role that the June meeting has in the rotation of chairs, I would propose that meeting be moved to June the 11th. And that be part of the long-range calendar. And
Would you be open to having it occur the week after?
I will be gone the week after until the first part of July, so
Well, that's an important meeting for the reasons you stated, Director Marble.
Yeah.
And also, it's the meeting where we would approve our fiscal year budget. So let me suggest that Lenan work with each of the board members and we find a date
Okay.
in June that works for everybody.
Yeah. And if it works the first week of July, that's also okay for me.
The first week of July would work for me. I know that the first 2 weeks of June I'm not available.
Okay.
So we'll coordinate
So
calendars.
we'll
and find a
coordinate
date.
that one. Maybe you can send something out and help us get that one matched up. Very good. Correspondence, I don't think we have anything there. Technical Advisory Committee, do you have an item, Diane?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on the local pipeline design for the city of Davis. Of course, we've spoken about the UC Davis portion of the project, but wanted to inform you that we have had the state revolving loan funds folks out to take a tour of the pipeline alignment and have their concurrence on our layout of our pipeline alignment and the environmental. We have just some submittals and one final review on the cultural to be completed for the state revolving loan fund. And we did this collaboratively with UC Davis staff. And so they're a part of it. So we're just a couple steps left from obtaining the $35.5 million for the Davis local facilities. And so hopefully in the next couple months we'll be able to wrap that up also. And then we are on schedule with our design. We're wrapping up design of the local pipelines for Davis. This of course includes the shared pipeline in the UC Davis. And in February, right now, we anticipate coming to Davis City Council and still anticipate that we're on schedule for May of 2016 when the startup of the surface water occurs. So I just wanted to let you know we're on schedule with that.
And City of Woodland wants to continue. The east trunk line is under construction, moving forward very well. They're putting down 350 feet a day. The east trunk line, or excuse me, that was the east trunk line. The west trunk line has contract has been awarded and is going under construction. Both of our ASR wells are now, that contract has been awarded, and the tank is operational and the punch list is being finalized. Also tonight, the West Yost and Associates has won an honor award for the Clean Water Agency for the Engineering Excellence Award, and also they are in the running for the 2015 Golden State Award, which will be announced tonight at the awards banquet. So that's all we have to report. Which organization? That's the ACSE, Association of Civil Engineers.
I'm not sure the board is aware of the good bid that you folks were able to achieve on the pipeline for Woodland, the west.
Tim, you want to comment on that?
So yeah, the West Transmission Main, we had an engineer's estimate of about $3.3 million. The bids came in, we got 12 bids out of 21 contractors that had taken up plan, which is actually very, very good for a project like this. And we received project bids, if I remember correctly, about $2.37 million. So about 30% below engineer's estimate, and on a unit price basis, it's very, very good pricing. It was a very competitively bid project, and we got prices well below the estimate, well below what we've seen for the past couple of years.
And the bid was awarded to Tykert, so local company as well. Very good. Board member comments? Any other comments from staff? I thank you too for that. Sid? Comments? Okay, I've got just a couple things I'd like to fill the board in on. First of all, the Water Resource Association has now held 2 meetings where we've spent some time on groundwater issues, and especially as they relate to the Groundwater Sustainability Act that was enacted by the legislature and the governor this year. There will be a resolution coming to our various entities to support the Water Resources Association in conjunction with the Farm Bureau and other interested entities in sponsoring a series of public meetings to assist in determining the most appropriate groundwater sustainability agency for our large countywide area. That's a very important decision. It's not one that can be taken for granted. Many people kind of feel by default the WRA would be the logical entity to form that agency, but that agency actually has powers and authorities that it's very important to make sure that we've got buy-in from all interested parties, including the farming community in our area. So we're taking this very slowly and deliberately, but we will have to designate a groundwater sustainability agency for this area, and though we have some time to do that, that ought to be on all of our radar screens. Secondly, the cap-to-cap water team has been meeting. I know Jim Hilliard, Director Hilliard's been attending those meetings. I've attended some of those meetings. We will be on the water resources team on the cap-to-cap trip, dealing with the regional water issues, and just wanted to make the board aware of that taking place. Also, next month, Mr. Deemer and myself will spend some time in Washington, D.C., along with NACWA. And NACWA, let me backtrack on that as to why we're there, because our federal funding we think is pretty intact. But NACWA was, and 2 other regional water purveyors were very instrumental in putting their interests behind our needs to allow us to obtain that funding from the Bureau of Reclamation sooner than we likely would have otherwise obtained it. And we have felt a responsibility because of they were there with us on a lobbying trip where we went together to the Bureau, and they told the Bureau that yes, they would allow their needs to come after the needs of the water agency. So we felt committed to assisting in helping ensure that their funding also is obtained for their fish screens, and so that's why we'll be there next month. Anyway, that's all I have to report. Did you have a question, Don?
Question, what are the dates of, do you know where the dates of that DC delegation are?
I don't have them on top of my head.
It's the 23rd to the 26th of February.
Okay.
And second build is in the discussions that WRA has had to date on the groundwater sustainability plans. When has there been discussion about the geographic reach of the basins?
It's a known discussion. It's known that discussion needs to take place. Okay. That there has to be coordination with other entities for us to arrive at some determination. The state, I think, largely the way I understand it, and our attorneys and West Yost and others and city engineers would all understand this better than I, but as I understand it, the DWR is perfectly happy, and actually they made this statement at our WRA meeting. DWR was there at our previous meeting, indicating that if local entities are agreed on designation of a groundwater sustainability agency, it's fine with them, as long as it meets the parameters. So they're largely defaulting to what local agencies, in an effort to acknowledge the role of local local control in these issues. And so that discussion will take place as part of the outreach. And I indicated in the WRA meeting on Monday that the reason that the Farm Bureau is involved, because they're not a public agency, they have no right or authority under the Groundwater Sustainability Act to even participate as an entity in a JPA or otherwise as part of a groundwater sustainability agency. However, we're all aware in Yolo County of the role they played in having 2 county water ordinances rescinded. And we know that it's very important that we have the farming community with us as we try to move forward in implementing this act, which has been enacted. We have no authority to rescind it locally, so we need to do the best we can, and the Farm Bureau desires to be a part of that discussion.
So the reason I asked the question is that it's our understanding there are 4 basins that have some geography within Yolo County, and 2 of them go beyond the county. So the neighboring counties,
Right.
and how we grapple with with that connectivity
Yeah,
is
very
one
important
of the questions.
questions. We've also got reclamation districts like RD 108, which span not only Yolo County but into Colusa County, and so a lot of determinations that we've got to grapple with and figure out what fits best and what's going to work best for us.
Fun begins.
Very good. Do I hear any opposition to adjournment? Seeing none, the meeting's adjourned.